Welcome to another episode of the Impossible Life Podcast. I'm your co-host Nick Surface, and I'm looking across at a man who is trained in combat, weapons, and corn dog consumption. That's right, friends, the former Navy SEAL, Garrett Unklebach, a man who is a jack of all trades, including fine dining.
Jack of all trades and master of corn dog consumption. I wouldn't say
Okay, that,
master. I wouldn't say master of corn dog consumption. I would say master corn dog connoisseur.
yeah,
I don't want to
it's
be the
funny because
master
we.
of consumption. I think on anything except maybe the word.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm glad that you're critiquing Well, you've been critiquing my interests
Yeah, I've
literally
been
this entire.
critiquing you since before you knew I was critiquing you. So
That is a very true statement, and one that is loaded with lots of things that we can get distracted on. But we're not going to do that today because we are focused people. So today's shortcast is very much tactical, and it's something that it's one of those ones to kind of bookmark for later because, you could be going through some stuff now that makes it very relevant. But it's how to get through a difficult time. We're all going to go through them. I'm going to go ahead and say that you're almost never going to see them coming because that's truly what makes it difficult is whenever something just gets sprung up on you. I have
and
a
and
saying.
I would
Go
say,
ahead, G.
even if you're not in a difficult time yet, you should listen to this today because we're going to talk about some of the things you should do before you get into a difficult time. So, the best time to prepare for a difficult time is not the day that it happens to you.
Right.
So, whether you're in a
We're also
difficult
going to
time
talk
or
about
not, you should listen to this.
we're also going to talk about what not to do. You tell a story, Garrett, about how whenever COVID was going on, like you had a bunch of people reaching out to you, like, "Hey, bro, like if it all goes terrible, like we're gonna be together, right? Like you got me." And you were just can you
No,
share
bro.
that?
Yeah, no. People were like, we got to start getting ready. And like, I'm on your team. It's like, bro, if you're not ready, you're not on my team. Right. Like, you bet you should have started getting ready before it showed up at your front door.
Yeah, exactly right. Because the truth is, difficulty and adversity and pain is coming for you. It's just a matter of when. And I have a saying. I go, some days I get in the ice bath. Other days life throws me in the ice bath. AKA, there's been days when I'll be like, oh, this day's blowing up and it's whatever, 6 in the morning, and I'm like, looks like I don't have to get in the ice bath today. Like the ice bath has been forced upon me, and fortunately, I can recognize that now. So first of all, we're going to talk about what not to do. And you have a quote, G, that you love from our man Bruce Lee, who's an underrated philosopher.
Oh man, he truly is an underrated philosopher because that's exactly what he was. He had a very philosophical approach to martial arts. He's probably top 10 people that I quote. Uh,
Oh,
Bruce Lee
okay.
Bruce Lee said, "Don't wish for an easier life. Wish for the strength to endure a difficult one."
Hmm.
And which kind of leads us right into where we want to start today on this episode of how to get through a difficult time. Is let's start with what not to do when bad things are happening to you, because bad things are going to happen to you. And Bruce Lee actually says it right here. Here's what not to do: don't wish for an easier life.
Right.
That's what a lot of
Yeah.
people do. They wish that it was easier. They wish
Hmm.
things were different. If you're walking down the street and some dude ambushes you and jumps on you and starts fighting you, don't start wishing that this hadn't happened to you. Like
Yeah.
that's a
It's not.
recipe for failure. That's a recipe for dying or ending up in the hospital when somebody has assaulted you. You need to have the right mentality and the right approach when bad things happen to you. And the same way that you've got to have some rules and standards in your life for what you do and how you do things, right? If I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to, eat right. I'm going to drink my pre-workout. I'm going to drink my protein shake. I'm going to go in there with a plan. I'm not going to go in there and say like, well, let's just see how I feel today. And
Yeah.
if you're new to the gym, it's good. It's better that you just go than that you don't go at all. But when you're trying to grow in that area, like I'm going to show up with a plan and I'm going to execute my plan because I'm going to bring a plan that I probably don't like and is going to make me feel uncomfortable. And so I'm going to go ahead and prepare now for what I do when I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just like, if you drink, you shouldn't drive after you do that. It's an
Right.
easy standard for how you manage your life. And there's some standards that you need to have for how you manage pain in very difficult circumstances. Here's one of the first ones: don't wish that things were different, because that is
Yeah.
putting you in a very impaired situation.
Yeah, it's escape thinking. I mean, the great martial artist Jim Rohn said, "Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better." Right, and it's
Yeah.
almost the same thing as what Bruce Lee said. Second thing not to do is to ask why this is happening to you, because that is what a lot of people will do. Like, why? It's very similar to wishing it away. I had a situation literally last night where I was helping a very wonderful, lovely, emotional 12-year-old daughter of mine go through some math problems. And that was the number one question that she was asking because she was not in a good state, was why did they have to give this to us? Like, why can't they just make sure that all the work is done when we're at school? And I'm like, all valid questions, none of which are helpful. And but like, because once you're doing that, what are you looking for? You're just looking for the escape button. You're looking for the injustice that can justify why you feel the way that you do, and it's not helping you. And that's a
It's
lot of people.
that's a lot of people when difficult things are happening to them. They're saying, whether it's to God or to the universe or just to whoever they think their
Mhm.
arbitrator is, they're asking why. Why did this happen to me? Why did you do this to me? And that why mindset, again, it's going to put you in a situation where that when you're asking why, because you can ask why in the right way,
Right.
but there's kind of an assumed tone here. If you go through something difficult, you should in post reflection say, Lord, why did I end up here? Did I do something
Right.
wrong? Are you teaching me a lesson? Is this for my good? Now, God's probably not going to give you a direct answer, but it is very good that you learn from your mistakes, that you learn from your difficulties. It's not so much that the why question is wrong. The problem is that most often the why question comes with an air of entitlement. When
Oh
you're
yeah.
asking why, it's from the foundation or from the assumption that this shouldn't have happened to me. So
Right.
why did it? Right?
Yeah.
And that's not always true.
No, yeah, you're exactly right, man. You're feeling sorry for yourself. Another thing not to do is ask when it will be over, because there's a great question to just make yourself wallow and
Are
go
are,
deeper
are we
into the
there?
hole.
Are we there yet?
Yeah,
Are
I,
we there
it's
yet?
I mean, but it's amazing. Like, we're saying that, and that's like such a little kid question to ask whenever you're
Yeah.
driving on a road trip. But it's amazing how we take the same little kid mindset into a lot of things that we deal with as adults, and we're completely unaware of it. It's like we would never ask a 6-year-old for financial advice, but all the time we will go back and like take a 6-year-old's perspective on difficulty, because we develop these habits and this way of viewing, like, well, we shouldn't have to do this, or this shouldn't be this way, and we have these wrong assumptions about life that then keep us in that little kid state for our adulthood, and then we can't figure out why it's not working out. It's, when you think about it that way, it's very obvious. But I remember when I first realized, I was like, oh man, I'm bringing some very old, like, little kid thought patterns and doing them as adults, and you see it all the time. You see grown adults that are behaving like small children, and it,
Well,
it
the
doesn't
truth
work.
is, people, unless you had things happen to you in your life that taught you this, unless you have parents that taught you this or a mentor that taught you this is an area that many people are uneducated in. Right?
Yeah.
You go to school and you learn about math, and you go to work and you learn what it means to have expectation put upon you. But when it comes to dealing with pain and difficulty, a lot of people, when they go through great pain, they really do turn back into a 5-year old or a 6-year old,
Yeah.
and they're looking for someone to come and care for them. And I'm not saying that that makes you a bad person. What I'm saying is that there's more maturity for you if you'll understand that, hey, there's actually this is a young person's approach to this. But as I get older and as I mature, there's a right way to approach this.
Yeah.
And what I need to do is have the right mindset, have the right actions, and I'm going to get through this. And I don't want to have a 6-year old's approach to dealing with pain.
Very good. And similar to what you said, another thing not to do is try to get to the root source of what caused it. Because similar to what you said about how you should have a reflective why perspective afterwards, if you're in the middle of a storm and you're trying to figure out what caused it, guess what you can see? A storm. You're not wearing like a clear lens. You have no perspective. Like, if you want to get a lay of the land, get to the top of a mountain. Don't try and figure out the lay of the land whenever you're deep in the valley and all you can see is like trees, jungle, and mountains all around you. You have no idea what the lay of the land looks like. But oftentimes, this is like, people will be like, "Oh man, I think this is what happened, and actually, this is why this is going on." Because you're just developing a narrative that will lead you all sorts of places, and none of which will be correct. But it's a very natural thing.
As the saying goes, can't see the forest from the trees. Right. When
Yeah.
you're in the middle of it, right? Don't try to, work it all out, solve the why this happened to me. You can say, 'cause it really is similar. We're just saying this one as another thing of what not to do, because it's not the same, but it is similar. When you're trying to get to the root of it, you are
Hmm.
looking for the why. You're just not
Oh
necessarily
yeah.
asking it, but you're searching for it.
Right. And it's we put those in there as separate. That's a good point. We put those in there as separate because they're like two sides of the same coin, but they're different enough that you might be like, oh well, I'm not asking why. It's like, no, you still are. It's just a different you're phrasing it differently.
It's not helpful.
No. And the last thing not to do, and I would hope
Well,
this would be obvious.
I will say, Nick, we didn't state this, but the prerequisite for all of this is that when you go through hard things, you want to be victorious on the other side of it. If you don't want to
Yeah.
be victorious on the other side of difficulty, then this all these lessons they're not for you. But if you do
Right.
want to be victorious, then the same way that you would listen to your fitness coach or your golf coach or your if you're a quarterback, your quarterback coach, whatever it is, you're going to listen to them when they say, "Hey, this is how I want you to respond when you get hit. This is how I want you
Yeah.
to respond when you have a difficult lie. This is how I want you to respond when you're not feeling well."
Yeah, and what I would say victorious is not necessarily that you have a predetermined outcome that you're like, this will be my victory is when it ends up a specific way, but that you've gotten stronger and that you've grown and you've learned. That's what victorious looks like in difficulty. Because as you gave such a great example of, it's like someone putting a bunch of weight on a bar and you're at the gym. You can cry about it and then like collapse and then they'll take the bar off you, or you can push through it and then when you're done, guess what? Next time that weight comes on the bar, you're like, oh, okay, I've been here before.
I would say victorious is like if you've read Viktor Frankl's book Man's Search for Meaning.
Mm,
He
yeah,
lived a victorious life, right? And he went through like being a prisoner of war. Like yes, ultimately America and that the Allies won and the guys were freed. And you could say that was the victory. That was 100% out of his control.
yeah,
He was victorious in his Viktor Frankl was victorious, and I'm also thinking of Louis Zamperini. Both of these men
yeah.
were victorious in how they dealt with their moments, not
Mhm.
what they couldn't control, but what they could control.
Yeah, so good. So the last thing not to do is to bargain with yourself, with others, or God. You are literally at your most vulnerable, and it's the worst place to make a decision. We have great biblical example of this in Jacob, who was like, "Hey, birthright and everything that is coming to me from my dad's inheritance, or a bowl of soup. I'll take the bowl of soup for 500, please, Alex." Like, not a good decision, right? But like,
It is the
that's us.
yeah, that's people read that story if you've read it in the Bible, you're like, man, what an idiot.
Yeah, because you're
But
sat there
we
comfortably in your air conditioned home judging this guy.
Right, but we do it all the time.
Yeah.
People you're in the ice bath or you're
Mhm.
in, one of life's real situations and you're saying, "Well, what do I gotta do to make this end? What do
Mhm.
I gotta do to make this end sooner? How do I get out of here? How do I make it stop? What do I need to say? Who do I need to be?"
Right.
And what you want this sounds brutal. Um, but you want to be the type of person that can't well doesn't suffer, and you want to be the type of person that cannot be intimidated by life, or like this is anti-interrogation training.
Here we go.
When truly that's what it is. I mean, it's
Yep.
anti-interrogation training, that when you're being forced to suffer and they're literally telling you well, this will all stop if you'll just do this. They
Mhm.
put you in a difficult situation and try to bargain with you. And you have to be the type of person, because what are you going to do at that point? You're going to betray your country, right?
Right.
And so that's the test. And oftentimes when you're in a difficult situation, it's not interrogation against, an adversary nation. It's between you and your destiny.
Yeah.
And you're going
Mhm.
to make a bargain that gives up your future. And so you
Yeah.
want to be the type of person that when you are put in this situation, that you would say, "I don't bargain," right? And that's essentially that's like the standard they give us when you prepare for anti-interrogation training is we don't play this game, right?
Yeah.
Here's how you stay in your box and you be who you're supposed to be and you maintain the character that you're called to have. We're not going to bargain with them. We're not going to see how we could make this end.
And I get to experience this all the time whenever I try and like ask you stuff and you just stay in your box and don't respond at all. It's wonderful. If you want to know what this looks like in modern day times, G, of like this, if you want to get a great example of why you shouldn't bargain when you're in your weakest, most vulnerable place, payday advance businesses, if you can call
Goodness
them that,
gracious.
like
Lord
these
help them.
predatory lenders exist, and it's a crazy. No one would say, "Hey, I'll tell you what. If you give me 20% of the paycheck you've got coming in 1 week, I'll give you that. I'll give you, X now." It's just, it's a horrible like it's a really bad negotiation. But when you're so tight that you need money right then and there, we see these places all over America, and unfortunately, they're always in impoverished areas. And it's like way to take advantage of people who are already in a tough spot. Like I would not want to be you, because the Bible is and God speaks explicitly about taking advantage of those who are already oppressed. And I just think it's a horrible thing. But in somebody's mind, because you're in a bad spot, it's like, sure, I just need this money now. I don't care what it costs in the future. And you're just sacrificing your future and digging the hole deeper. And it's awful. So let's get to what to do, G. And as you talked about before, the worst time to prepare is whenever the crisis hits. So before we even get to what to do in the moment, there you got to have preparation, right? Like you have to be preparing yourself to for when pain comes. So what are you going to
So
do?
a great example of this, and these are people that I've learned from. This is Spartans in the Agoge training. Okay, they put these guys in at, I think it's 7 or 8 years old, and they're not done until they're 20.
Hmm,
That's a lot of preparation, and what comes out of that is a man who's fully ready for the most brutal form of war, and not just that he could, still be a man on the other side of it, but that he would perform at an elite level.
right.
Right. So that's what it takes to make a man that way. It took them, 12, 13 years to be able to do that in young men. So that's a lot of preparation. And that's just, giving you an example of what kind of preparation it takes to know that when you face the worst of circumstances, you could perform at the highest level. That's the power of preparation. One of the things that they would do in that the Spartan training taught, and that they would do in the Agoge, and they did this a lot with the young men, is what they call, and this is a part of Spartan training, this is Stoicism, what they called negative visualization.
Hmm.
They would rehearse the worst possible things happening to them. Their arm getting cut off, all their teeth getting knocked out, whatever, getting stabbed in the leg, whatever it is. They would rehearse like mentally, like spend time meditating and visualizing these terrible things happening to them. And what they were doing is they were preparing their response for what would like how they would act when those things actually happen. This really is, many of you listen to the podcast have heard about equanimity, want more equanimity in your life. This is actually what an equanimity training plan looks like.
Hmm,
So when you've mentally rehearsed this over and over again, with the thought, with the predetermination that I'm doing this to get stronger, when those things actually happen to you, it's not a shock or a surprise.
right.
You've already said, "Oh, I've been here before, and I know what I'm going to do."
Yeah.
By the
And I
way,
mean,
you can do
yeah.
this on, just pro tip for you. You can do this for things like on a workout, right? Literally, like as you're driving to, like maybe you have a point in your workouts where you start to kind of cave and crater, and well, I'll just do 8 reps instead of 10, and I'll do 3 sets instead of four, or whatever kind of workouts you do. If you have a point where you kind of start to fall off, and you're not pushing yourself to your best as you're on your way to the gym, or walking into the gym, whatever your path there is, just spend a few minutes like meditating and rehearsing and visualizing how painful it's going to be. And I promise you, what'll happen is when that moment comes, you'll go, "Oh, I already knew this was going to come, and I
Hmm.
already decided what I'd do."
Yeah. And that's the forward looking visualization. What I think is equally as powerful, if not more powerful, is to actually give yourself an experience of something difficult, aka do hard things. I will say that the great thing is you can literally chart and hear me talk about all the hard things that we've done in the past 4 years on this podcast if you listen to every episode. But what's happened is my definition of hard has changed in literally every area of my life, not just physical challenges. The physical is great because when you're feel like you're drunk and you have, or sorry, when you feel like you have COVID and a hangover combined, aka the altitude sickness we had the first time we climbed Mount Massive, and then blizzard conditions come in with 60-mile-per-hour winds and sideways snow, and you're up on a mountain and there's no one coming to get you, and
Nice
you
day.
go, I feel terrible, and we've got a long way ahead of us. Man, that was such a I just laugh about that moment now. But when you sit there and think about that, like truly, you're like, wow, this is not something I experienced. How hard is it whenever you start to have like, oh man, whatever, something happened in my house and now I have to replace my fridge, or oh man, something's not going right at work. It's like, well, you know what? No one's gonna die. I feel physically okay, and whatever. This is not like this isn't going to last much longer than the couple
So
hours I have left at work. It's
it's a
such a
good thing
shift.
we had flights at the end of that day, or we might have lost a man up there.
Dude, yeah, for sure. Yeah, dude, I really do think it was God's grace that having now completed that climb. Can you imagine being on some of those peaks when a 60-mile-per-hour wind comes and the condition of some of the guys that were slipping on the way down? I genuinely think someone would have fallen
Would
over
have
that
been
second peak.
there would have been a few of us at the top.
Dude, you say that with a smile on your face. I genuinely think someone would have died. I'm not even joking. Anyways, I
I
was
wouldn't
talking
have
about
let
that
that
with,
happen.
well, dude, if someone gets blown off the side of that second peak, they're going to be gone before you can do anything. I remember looking down and going, "Oh, that's death," and it was like 3 feet from us when we were doing that. There was that one
Yeah,
part where you're walking literally on like a
yeah.
tightrope.
Don't
Anyways,
don't do that.
okay, well, hey, great advice. Thanks, G. Appreciate it. So doing hard things will change your definition of hard. Perspectives are so powerful to take and know, like, because when you get caught in a moment, I talk about this all the time. We had Dr. Robbie on. The more I read scripture, the more I see Paul, the apostles, Jesus talking about thanksgiving. You know what I mean? Like how important it is to be grateful. What are you grateful for? If you're sitting there and you're like starting to feel yourself get down in the dumps, what are you grateful for? Because the moment you start finding the things that you're grateful for, it's going to completely flip how you're looking at the problem. It's like putting on a new pair of glasses and suddenly you see things that you didn't see before. The other perspective I would say that's so helpful is it could always be worse. And this is tied to the preparation of doing hard things. This is a perspective that you've shared at length in Mindset Mastery, which we're covering perspective right now, and that I've learned from you. Let me give you a practical example of how this happened. Recently, I went for to celebrate my 20 years. Me and my wife went to Costa Rica, which was amazing. While I was there, on like the 2 days before we were due to catch a flight back, I got a parasite, which I'd never had a parasite before, and nor have I ever experienced a mass evacuation quite like that, to put it mildly. And it was awful. In the end, your mom diagnosed me better than the doctors and gave me ivermectin because the doctors gave me antibiotics that made it worse. So, but anyways, so I'm sat there when you're like supposedly in paradise and I've had a great week with my wife, and I could have this mindset of like, oh, it ruined the whole thing. I never took that thought. I'm flying on super small planes that don't have a bathroom. I'm then flying on a commercial plane. I'm in places that it's like 90 degrees, high humidity, no air conditioning. So I'm already dehydrated from flushing my body out. I was in a lot of pain, not gonna lie. And it was very inconvenient, very uncomfortable. And all I could think, anytime I felt myself starting to spiral, like, because there was a couple times when I was like, oh my gosh, I just want this to be done, I would immediately go, you know what? Thank God you don't have to run 100 miles. Why? Because I'd done something difficult before. When we ran our 100 milers both times, and even though sometimes on the practice runs, my stomach would get jacked up. And so, like, when you're sitting there and you're like, oh, my ankle won't bend, my knee won't bend, and I've got stomach issues, and I've got to go back out and run, another 40 miles or whatever it was at that point. That is worse to me. And so it could always be worse. I had a very practical example of going like, you know what, I feel bad, but thank God I just get to lay here and drink water. And it helped a lot. I never spiraled, got back to America, eventually got back on my feet, lost 10 pounds. Praise the Lord. It's
When I
helpful.
go through things that are painful that aren't just like a workout, like when I get
Yeah.
a bad headache or a migraine or an injury, one of the things I'll do is like I've had knee surgery before, so I know what it's like to not have a functioning leg.
Right.
And like if I have a really bad migraine, one of the things I'll do is like I'll flex my arm or flex my leg, just
Hmm.
like telling my body like, look at this functioning arm that you have. Look at these
Right.
great functioning legs that you have. Like
Yeah.
like literally get my mind thinking about the things that are working well, not focus on the things and reverse. Right. If like
Yeah.
I sprain my ankle or like jam my wrist, I'm like, man, I'm so glad I don't have a headache right now.
Yeah. And they're virtually the same thing. It's what are you grateful for, and it could always be worse, are the same. It's the same thing, just asked a different way. And either way, it's going to
It's
shift you out.
easier. Yeah, it's easier for people to think about how it could be worse.
Right.
Be- Right. But then you let your brain start to go in that direction and you mental judo yourself and flip it and say, well, good thing it's not that.
Dude, mental judo, that's going to be an intro. I love that you just said that. Okay. So, G, let's get into what to do. So, you're a difficult situation's come on.
This is,
You've been punched in the face in life, or
yeah, this is what
however it's
everybody
happened.
wants. What's the
Yeah.
what's the hack? What are
Yeah.
the
Just give me
tips?
the magic two-step process that gets it over in 5 minutes.
I
Please
will.
go.
I've responded to some people in really difficult situations, and I didn't teach this to them. I just helped walk them through it.
Yeah.
And this is what you can do with other people, like help walk them through. You don't need to try and tell them what you're doing; just help them with some of these things, and I'll
Right.
mention that part. Um, Really, what you want is to take this in and have practiced these things, use these things a lot, so that when some of the worst things happen to you, and I got that feedback by the way, this last year, somebody was telling who had listened to this before was telling me a story of how they got in a terrible car accident and they were okay, but it was the scariest thing they'd ever been in their life, and they immediately jumped into breath control, which I
Huh.
love.
Okay.
So let's talk about the SEAL Big Four really quick. This is how to respond to the most difficult things. This is what they taught us in the SEAL teams. Like, hey, you're going to face extreme chaos and duress, and this is what you need. Number one is breath work. They called this arousal control. It's like your body can get into this zone and it's just running away from you
Yeah.
emotionally, hormonally. Your brain turns into fear lizard brain, and it's bad. And the simple is do controlled breath work. Let
Hmm.
just have it's active breathing is what it is, right? We inactively breathe all the time. We passively breathe all the time. But active breathing, where you're controlling your breath, what they would teach us is box breathing: in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4.
Yeah.
Now, there's if you're like a super breath work nerd, there's better like breath work patterns that you can do. But the point is that it's really easy to remember: 4 for 4 for 4, right?
Right.
In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. And if you just do like 2 or 3 of those boxes, you can be like in the most uncomfortable situation. It'll straighten you out. And I won't go into all the science in this episode today, but that's one of the first things you need to do is just some breath work, arousal control. Second thing is segmentation, right?
Hmm.
In SEAL training, this was sometimes you're having like a day that's going to be the worst day of your life. And you can't say, like, man, I just got to get through today. You can't,
Right.
sometimes you're going to say, like, okay, I'm just going to make it to the next meal. But sometimes
Hmm.
that's an hour and a half away. And all you got to say is, like, hey, I'm not going to let my boat crew down on this next evolution, right? The
Yeah.
next 3 minutes are going to be really terrible. And I'm going to push through it. Right. So segmentation is breaking big things down into manageable chunks. As the saying goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But first, you have
Yeah.
to kill the elephant. It's not an easy undertaking either, but you eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah, and for somebody that's not going through like SEAL training, you don't really know how long it's going to last. So I would say that it's just do the next right thing and make sure it's done
That's right.
right. Like if your life is falling apart, if you've had like a bunch of stuff break around your house, let's say you had a disaster, like you had a car crash, like what you said. Okay, so you've caught yourself under control. What's the next right thing? Well, the next right thing is check and see if everybody's okay. Then call the police. Like it's just I don't need to know how this is all going to end or when it's going to be over. I'm just going to do the next right thing and make sure I do it well.
I've heard people that I respect and who've been through a ridiculous amount of combat. People that I learned from in the military. They talked about like the battlefield mindset of
Mhm.
it's like playing pickup basketball, and the only question is what's next, right?
Right.
Like, oh,
Yeah, very
the
good.
the other team got the ball. Okay, get down the court. Right. It's
Right.
the only thing you do is what's next, what's next, what's next, and
Yeah.
eventually that turns into I've eaten an elephant.
Right. Very good.
Number three, visualization. This is like okay, when we were in boats and logs, which is like some of the evolutions in SEAL training that people would say is like the most difficult evolutions. What you got to do is like sometimes in the middle of it, right? Like I would almost start to meditate or visualize, see myself looking strong doing this thing,
Mm.
see myself completing
Yeah.
this thing, right? When we were climbing the mountains, right? When we did Mount Massive, like I would when it started to get hard, I'm seeing myself at the top,
Yeah.
right? Visualize finishing, visualize completion, and visualize yourself standing up taller. If you can't take another step, see it in your mind before you do it. Right? My dad taught me about this. This is a baseball thing, right? Like
Hmm.
see the ball hitting the bat, right? And I had a great coach when I was young and did some private lessons, and it wasn't just actually see the ball in the bat with your eyes, but see it in your mind. And
Hmm.
that's exactly what you're doing here, right? You need to
Yeah.
see yourself taking the next step, see yourself, hear yourself responding with the right words, responding with your emotions under control. You have to see it in your mind before you're actually going to do it. And
Yeah,
then
and
number,
psychologically, that's called disassociation, which I think I've said this
yeah,
before. I'll briefly note it for those that haven't listened to that episode. When your dad was saying to you when you were a kid, "I wish you could see yourself now," it was actually genius because when you disassociate, aka you view it like you're watching a movie, you move into the logical part of your brain. So if you're going through something difficult and you like now see yourself, like I'll do this when I'm in workouts. I'll be like, "Be strong, act like a man." I'll see myself from the outside, be like, "I don't want to look pathetic right now." So immediately I sit up and like
it's
I want to be a man.
It's one of the strongest, like, you know this from guys like Mookie Betts or like the greatest athletes, they or great gymnasts, they
Hmm.
have incredible body awareness,
Oh yeah.
right? They know where they're actually at in space. But
Yep.
someone who's a terrible athlete, zero awareness of like where they're at, bump into things.
Right.
Great athletes can see, like, they know exactly, they could draw a perfect picture of themselves. Like they could if they were great artists, they could draw the film of what they looked like as they
Hmm.
made the catch.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's the like the um, kinesiology of it, the body form of it. But you also need that same level of body awareness from like an identity awareness perspective. And
Yeah.
this is one of
Very
the things
true.
that I focus on the most is like, who am I actually in this moment? Not just what's the shape of my body, what's my posture, what's my physical form, but what's my identity form in this moment. And that's
Yeah.
something we can probably jump into more. Last one here is self-talk, right? Um, this is I take self-talk a step further and just am totally okay with being a crazy person when tough things happen to me, and I'll say things to myself, right? Like you guys have heard me talk about my temptation response. I'll
Yeah.
say out loud, I bet you'd like that, wouldn't you? And saying it out loud for me, from a sin perspective, gets the internal battle out, right?
Yeah.
And it divides me. It helps me understand that there's a part of me that's destructive and there's a part of me that wants to follow God. In the same way, self-talk, right? If you're listening to your thoughts in difficult situations, you're probably having a bad time. Now, when
Yeah.
your thoughts get active, like I had a mantra that I used to say to myself when I was going through SEAL training, some really simple things that I would say to myself, just speaking positivity over myself. And I literally just like went into dumb mode, right? As literally, I couldn't think of anything else except like a few words, and I would just keep saying these positive things over and
Mhm.
over again. And so you want to have the great internal self talk that's active, that's positive. And the next step really is like letting it come out of your mouth. The words
Yeah.
that we use are so important. This isn't just like some manifestation, whatever about words. It's actually, it gets your brain in the right, like the same way that breath work gets you in frontal lobe, self talk gets you in frontal lobe, which is the smart, the logical, the reasoning part of your brain.
Yeah. I mean, all these things are really just you pushing back from the inside rather than allowing what's outside to push in on you. I mean, we talked about locus of control in one of our previous episodes. That's really what this is. It's not being pushed around by the situation, but instead controlling your controllables. I mean, there's never a time you can't control your breath, your segmentation, your visualization, your self talk. You always have a choice.